Hi everyone, I'm Jay West and this is Directions. Directions is all about discovering how good and bad things in our lives propel us forward and what we're then walking through, and then how God might intervene in that as well and bring correction or bring a blessing in our lives and how that works out. Everything from major problems to major blessings, we like to talk about directions. And my special guest that I'm just now meeting is Nancy Todd. Hi, Nancy.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. We've talked a little bit by texting.
Yes.
And I tried to get our good friend Viv Ewing on the show. Viv is the wife of John Ewing, the mayor of Omaha. And first she said yes, and then she came and said, oh no, I've got an appointment, I can't do it. And I didn't ask her to get me anybody. I just figured, okay, it's not going to work. And suddenly she was referring people. She referred two, and you were one of them. And so, and then for you, I'll shut up here in a minute. For you, you were scheduled, but then you had so many other conflicts. You were like texting me saying, I'm not sure I can make it, which is fine. I get that. That happens all the time. But I'm so thankful you came.
Well, I'm thankful to be here.
So tell us a little bit about Nancy Todd.
I grew up in Fremont, Nebraska.
Okay.
And my husband and I moved to Omaha. He had a practice in Fremont, and I worked downtown at Conagra Foods. In fact, that's how
Was he a doctor? You said, or a lawyer?
He was a eye doctor.
Eye doctor.
And had his practice in Fremont. He has since passed away, but I continue to go strong. And
I have an eye doctor joke. It's kind of silly.
Oh.
You probably heard it. Did you ever have the eye doctor that backed into the lens grinder?
No.
He made a spectacle of himself.
Made a spectacle of himself.
Sorry. Anyway.
Good.
Too dumb. Okay. Anyway.
So part of my journey has been, how do I continue as being an HR professional, how do I continue giving back? And I've just found my passion in being a career consultant and helping people through their journey, going through the facets of life when they've been notified that their job has been eliminated,
Right.
through no fault of their own. All of a sudden, one day, it's like the carousel stops. And so my role is to come alongside, help them navigate, kind of be a strategic partner, a coach, a advisor, and probably as importantly for me, a cheerleader, right? Helping them on that journey.
I had a friend that was on the show here about 8 or 9 months ago. Her name's Shelley, and she had been suddenly found herself unemployed after working for a company that she got to travel all over the world. And she did amazing stuff, and they were just started to downsize, and she was one of the ones that got cut.
Impacted.
And it took her almost 2 years. She has a new job now, but we prayed and prayed and hoped and looked and waited, and that transition. And her husband had already retired, but they needed her income too to help with that retirement. It was a struggle. So that transition. So you help people.
I do.
In that transition phase of their life that most of the time it's probably unexpected unless they quit. So.
It is generally unexpected. And with that comes usually numbness, some shock. Often it's equated to going through a grieving process, right? That this isn't what you wanted.
Right.
You don't control it, but nonetheless, it's impacted you. So how do you move from that point of I'm in stasis and what do I do next? Because I could have worked for a company for 43 years,
right,
like Mike, or even if it's 3 years, it still does. It impacts your self-esteem.
Oh, for sure.
Most times people say, well, what do you do, Jay? Well, that's part of our identity.
Right.
So it's really doing a deeper dive internally, and it's am I ready to move forward? Because you can't accomplish anything until you're ready to move forward.
Right.
But we can help gird you and give you a path. So again, are you ready to move forward? And then what strategies do I need to initiate and take action?
It's nice that you're there helping people. When my first wife, who passed away, and we'll talk about your husband a little bit, we moved here to Omaha in 2000. We came to help an inner city Christian school. And I was the principal, and she was on staff as a teacher. And we were excited. They asked us in advance to make a 5-year commitment. What they didn't tell us was how bad the finances were in the school. And the school closed the next year. 17 employees lost their job on the same day. we were the only married couple that lost our job. So we both find ourselves
At
unemployed,
the same time, yeah.
and we're in a new city where we don't really know very many people. Our circle of friends, that it takes a while to develop friends. Our circle of friends basically were at that school, and now they're all dispersing over the city too. We don't really know anybody, and we're stuck. What do we do? And so my wife applied for a job at another school, but then the state of Nebraska came and said, well, she needs 2 more courses for certification in Nebraska. And I wasn't going to be a principal anymore. I have administrative experience, so I just said, I like to travel. I put my name out to travel and speak at churches. The first year I went to 12 churches. The second year I went to 50 churches. The third year I went to 125 churches. And for me, God became my consultant. He opened up the doors to what I'm doing. But not everybody has that option. And so you're a great person to come along and share that. Let's back up. Can we back up for a minute before we go? Do you want to talk a little bit about your husband and what you shared with me and how that transition happened in your life?
I was, and that as actually a career transition and a life transition have a lot of the same milestones, right? It's you have to get to the point where you're saying, I grieve the past and I miss it.
Right.
But oftentimes it's just baby steps.
Right.
What do I need to do today?
Right.
What do I have on my to-do list? And I'm a strong advocate. We've got to have a plan.
Right.
We've got to have a bigger picture, whether it's a dream board. I'm a strong proponent of a dream board. I'm a strong proponent of prayer.
Okay, let's stop for a minute. What's a dream board? A
dream board is where you literally have a board and you find scripture, you find pictures, you start visualizing.
Okay.
It's like, for lack of vision, the people perish.
Right.
So you need to create that vision, make it real, start feeling it, start investing in it, start doing
So you're writing it down. Habakkuk says to write down the vision.
Yes.
So make it plain so that you can eventually run with it.
So you can run with it.
Yeah.
So
2 great verses there.
Mm-hmm.
So
having that, again, it's building your strategy. It doesn't happen in an hour, doesn't happen in a day,
right.
But it means you are moving forward.
So how many years ago did your husband pass?
It's been 4.5 years
4.5
ago.
years.
Mm-hmm. He passed of pancreatic cancer, so it was very sudden.
That was in 2021?
2021, yeah.
Okay, so your husband passed in 2021. My wife passed in 2021, so we have that similarity. Mm-hmm. Different cancers, but similar.
Yeah.
So we walked a similar path, different at this point, but walked a similar path at the beginning. Grief is, I coined a phrase the other day, grief is not brief.
It is not. And there can be times, just like a job shift, right? Mm-hmm. That you're fine, and then all of a sudden you talk to a coworker, you hear a song, it can kind of take you back. It can come in at different stages, at different times, unexpectedly. But that's where you go back to your core. One of the things and Joel Osteen, I credit this to Joel Osteen, and this setback is really a set up for my comeback.
Yeah.
So whatever life throws you, whether it's a loss of a job, loss of a mate, loss of something significant to you, if you look at it through the lens of, yes, it's a setback, I'm acknowledging that, but it's a setup for my comeback. And I think that's very energizing, it's very empowering. And if you can embrace that, that's the impact of what you can do and see things through a different lens.
Well, the Bible's, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And that's when I'm weak, he's strong. He strengthens me, he strengthens you. You go through a situation, a life change, a loss of a spouse, a loss of a job, could be bankruptcy, it could be a lot of losses, What are you going to do? You're going to stay down. I have a friend who's been a millionaire twice and lost all his fortunes twice and got it back the third, in the process of getting it back the third time, becoming a millionaire for the third time, and just errors and mistakes in life and whatever.
And it's knowing that we have, a Lord, a Savior, and He knows every hair on our head, and
so. I see that. For some of us, that's no big deal, okay? So Joel Osteen, I've never met Joel, but I knew his dad, John, very well when we lived in Houston and Dodie. And I used to take them a coconut cream pie that was their favorite on their anniversary every year.
Wow, that's
amazing. I visited Lakewood, 3 or 4 years ago. I can't remember now. And the usher said, "Where do you want to sit?" I said, "I want to sit in the second row right behind Dodie Osteen because I know her." And he goes, "You don't know her." I said, "Yeah, I do." We had this conversation for 15 minutes. He walked up, he came back, he said, "You really do know her? You're the first person that's ever said that is true."
It really does.
And I went up and we had a nice conversation. So it was really nice. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So give us an example of, without naming names, give us an example of somebody you've helped in the process and from beginning to the end and how that worked.
No, Deb lives up in Sioux Falls, Iowa, had a really important executive role at Wells Fargo and got the notification that, her job was eliminated. And so, of course, she had the higher salary, and we all get used to, having that level of lifestyle and income. And so she had a 6-month program, but it was, it was a lot of hills and valleys. It's the roller coaster. You think you're close, and then they decide to go a different direction. They put the position on hold. So it was a series of those kinds of things. And I just want to read. I got an email from Deb, and just the other day, God is so good, and He provided the perfect job at the perfect time. I'm so excited and so grateful for you, your coaching tips and resources, but most of all, your support and encouragement. Thank you, Nancy, for everything. I wish you a very Merry Christmas. Blessings to you. So this is the fruit. This is the testimony of going through a crisis period. And if you stay faithful and you continue doing what you know to do, you've developed your strategy, you keep talking to people, networking is statistically the most important thing that you can do. Tapping people in your own network as your ambassadors, telling your story, kind of crafting your narrative. Over 60% of the time, that's the open door. You still have to look at job boards, LinkedIn, Indeed, but be cognizant and really develop your network. They're there to support you. And also, I had a brother-in-law's neighbor. You can't script that, but he was telling the message of what he was looking for, what his skill sets are. And it's not about titles, it's about skills. And that's something we have to remember. Just because you've been a director or a manager or a vice president, it's what is your value proposition? What can you bring to that organization? That's what they are in tune to hear.
So if somebody right now just lost their job, whether it's upper management or the labor force or something in between, okay, what's your first steps advice to them? They're just now they're in the first month.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Jay. The first thing you need to do is start reflecting and downloading on your accomplishments. What have you done well? Usually there's a pattern that begins to emerge, things that you really excel in, things that your skill sets fit, and doing an inventory of those skills and really kind of writing it down. I'm a strong advocate. Write it down. Take that inventory of skills and then start thinking big. What's my ideal job? So this happened to me. How do you move forward? What are you looking for now? Begin to put meat on the bones, so to speak, and then start putting a marketing plan together, identifying target companies, thinking about your network. What am I going to do every day? LinkedIn is the #1 job board. Close behind it is Indeed. So you have to be doing all of these things. It's like covering all your bases.
So what's the first one you said?
LinkedIn.
Okay, I'm familiar with Indeed, but I'm not familiar with
LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is a great professional networking, right? So you're going to want to, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, that's going to be one of the #1 things you do because it's part of your brand.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, but in terms of ministry, I get more referrals through Facebook and even Instagram than I do with LinkedIn. I get some, but not that many. So.
Yeah, and Facebook, that's a conduit for your friends.
Right.
But LinkedIn is a really great way to even look up previous colleagues.
It's interesting for me in the ministry realm. not that many pastors
Yes.
are on LinkedIn, but a lot of pastors are on Facebook.
On
So,
Facebook, yeah,
So
that
for me,
makes
that
sense.
works differently. But
Yeah.
yeah. So part of this plan of theirs, strategy, includes a resume.
Absolutely. You've
Does
got
it include
to
does it
capture.
include besides a written resume? Does it include a video resume?
Video resumes we're seeing more and more. The caveat between that is when you look at a particular role, you want to, in as much as possible, customize to that role with the keywords, really lift up the experience that you have. And just a rule of thumb is you want to make sure that you are north of about 75% of the skills that they list, because that's their guiding point. That's what they're looking for. So anything less than that,
Right.
you're probably not going to get a call back. There's a very competitive environment. We've been used to a lot of remote jobs. That window is narrowing. So being open to hybrid, to on-site it's the way things are going. Not that you can't want a remote job, but just know that the competition is probably going to be steeper, and it can take you longer in your search.
So if somebody's looking, should they put anything about expectations or anticipations for salary and or benefits?
Generally on the application, they say, what is your desired salary? So they want to screen, because if you're looking for 200,000 and my position pays 100,000, you're not going to be happy. It's not going to really last. And sometimes people say, well, but I will be. But statistics show that once you get something, you're going to move on. So that's a way for a company to decide if they're going to interview you, if you're at least in the range. So I would avoid being too demanding. You can think about that in your prayer life, but when it comes to, how you want to present yourself,
Right.
the more open you are, negotiation really only starts when they want you.
Right.
That's when the key is.
Do you represent just the client only, or do you represent companies too?
In this case, I do not represent companies.
I'm just curious. So what came to my mind was years ago, I was traveling full time, but a church contacted me out of the blue, somebody recommended me them, went through the process with them. And I really thought it was like, oh, this is cool. This could happen, everything else. And then it didn't happen. They said, we decided not to go with you. And I said, fine. I said, out of curiosity, why did you not choose me? Okay. And they said, well, we didn't think we could pay you enough based on what you're currently doing. So I asked them, I said, okay, what would have been your starting pay for me had you hired me? And they told me, and I said, well, guess what? That's more than I'm making right
Okay.
now. They made an assumption without asking the question,
Well, that's why in this day and age, the way the laws are written, 99% of companies have an applicant tracking system, because if there's ever any question or a lawsuit,
Right.
you have the records that you can pull up. And so they've got.
It doesn't always work, though. He hired that superintendent over in Des Moines.
Well, yeah,
tracking
that's
thing doesn't always
that
work.
is a process failure.
Yeah.
They did not do their due diligence.
Right. Somebody messed up over
Yeah.
there. Yeah. So have you ever had that? Where just somebody got hired and or even the company had a failure?
I did have a candidate that one of my coaching points is authentically, make sure that you're doing your resume and pulling up the skill sets that the job description is looking for. So this individual embellished their skill sets,
Okay.
and they got hired. And then probably a month later, the individual called me back and said, Nancy, I've got fired from that position. So in talking to them, they had falsified. So never,
Right.
ever, falsify. Always make sure that it's authentic and well-grounded. You can lift up and illuminate, but you cannot lie.
So for you personally, as you work with clients, people you're assisting, helping, whether they're a believer or not, how does God interplay with you as you're working with them?
I love that question, Jay. I think it's important that we know our spiritual gifting, and because that's what God bestows upon us. And my number one is exhortation.
Okay.
And so being that consummate coach, that cheerleader, finding what they're looking for, really listening, discernment and knowledge are another parts of my gifting, and really understanding their heart. It's what they say, and it's also as importantly what they don't say.
Right.
So really pulling that out and beginning to work where they are. Like I said, sometimes people are just inches, just baby steps.
Right.
And other people are like, yes, I'm ready to go,
Right.
and
Right.
I want to put this plan together. So wherever they are on that continuum, it's hearing their heart and then coming alongside to help them navigate that journey.
Now, in case I forget, we're 5 minutes left in the show. How do people contact you? Do you have a website? Is there a...
No, I
are you on
work for
social media?
I work for an organization, Lee Heck Harrison, and they contract with the companies, and then I get in my queue the list of people. I've got over 151. I actually have 151 people right now that I
Wow.
work with.
No wonder you couldn't. It was hard for you to... She committed saying yes, and then she was kind of
I was
backpedaling a little bit and
trying
saying,
to get a hold of people, and they weren't responding. And I'm very responsible, and that's what we do. At the end of our appointment, we pick our next appointment time. So that's a commitment that I have with them.
I do the same thing
they
here.
have
When
with
I
me.
leave, I schedule
Yeah.
next to you taping, because it's
Yeah.
not, because you said, well, can we do it another day? I said, well, no, because, and part of the
Yes.
reason that's that way is because I travel so much. I'm gone a lot on weekends, so I don't schedule recordings on
Yeah.
Thursday and Fridays and Mondays because I'm usually leaving town
Yes.
and coming home.
Yeah.
So my recording times are Tuesday, Wednesdays. That's it. So anyway, yeah. So you have to go around your schedule.
Yeah, so I was able, and people were very gracious, and so I had some this morning before I came, and I have some over the lunch hour so that I can get everyone seen.
So what are your personal goals? Do you just want to keep doing this for the rest of your ministry life, or do you want to develop your own company, or you want to go into some other field, or?
Well, when you're plugged into your passion, as I mentioned, when Bob passed, I was a chief human resources officer at a hospital. Well, when you get that kind of devastating news,
Right.
everything crumbles. It's like I can't have that kind of
Right.
role and take care of him and do the things that God's put on my heart. So this opportunity, I had done it kind of on the side. And so then it was just like, well, this is what I'm meant to do. So I do see, as long as God wants me to do this, I mean, I can work
It's amazing what
part-time,
different
I
people
can
can
work
do.
remote.
The head pulmonologist at Methodist Hospital, where my wife died, that pulmonologist, his wife died in that same hospital.
Oh.
And I'm like, how do you work in a
Yeah.
place and help people all the time, knowing your own wife passed away in this same building? It's remarkable that he can do that. And,
So, God provides a way.
yeah,
Of course, I don't have the income that I had when, Bob and I were working, but
Right.
again, God provides. He is Jehovah Jireh.
Right.
But I do make a difference in people's lives, and they make a difference in mine.
do you just ever help people with personal, maybe non-employee type transitions, but just life struggles? Bring comfort,
think,
aid, assistance.
People do seem to, approach me with different things, and also knowing that, I'm a widow as
Right.
well, that,
Right.
because I think one of the fruits of the Spirit is joy.
Right.
And I literally want to make sure that I'm an ambassador of Christ, that I have joy.
I say it the opposite way. Being grumpy is not one of the fruit of the Spirit.
No, it's not. No.
Yeah.
So that's,
Yeah.
I feel like that's, my calling, and doing what gives God pleasure. He does the work in us, and that scripture from Philippians is near and dear to my heart as well.
Right. So you're trusting God for yourself. You walk through a devastation process, the loss of your husband.
Mm-hmm.
You were at a hospital. You kind of reinvented yourself somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You probably took some of your own advice at that time. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you're on your knees and you don't want to get out of bed,
right.
you've got to encourage yourself. I think of David in the Bible. He encouraged himself.
Right.
I killed a lion. I killed a bear. Who is this Philistine? You know, it's finding that deep inside.
He encouraged himself. He came back to his own town, Ziklag, and
Yes,
I don't.
everyone had to.
How did they
find
know?
their
What I
bedroom.
don't understand that the town was burned, but it said all the soldiers, everybody's family was kidnapped. How did they know that? Did they leave a ransom note? There's no indication how they knew
Yeah,
that.
it's-
And David, and then his own men wanted to kill him, and he got alone with the Lord
Yeah.
and encouraged himself. You have to be pretty strong to encourage yourself. Praying in the Spirit certainly helps. And
It does.
Getting into worship. I knew when Diane died, I knew that I could run to God or run away from God. And I chose to run to him, and I spent up to 10 hours every day with Jesus' image on YouTube, and I just immersed myself in worship, and God began to speak to me.
You're saying something interesting because it's a choice. You can get bitter
Right.
or you can get better.
Right.
And that's what
And I had a
that's
number
what
of men
life is.
who lost their spouses who approached me and said, "We just don't understand how you're progressing, and we're just stuck and everything else." I said, and nobody will date us. And I said, "Do you want
It's
the
a
truth?
choice.
You want the truth?" They said, "Yeah." I said, "Nobody's dating you because you're not running towards God. You're running away from him." And a lot of these ladies, they're either widowed or divorced, and they want to, even if they had a great marriage or they had a bad marriage, they want a great second marriage. And you're not that candidate. And one guy, and we're almost done. I turned to a couple of them, I said, "You also look like slobs." Okay. I said, "Get in shape, shave, get cleaned up a little bit, and you might get." And one guy took my advice, and he did all that, and he got remarried, and he was so happy. So we got 30 seconds.
Okay.
Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, it's been a joy. It's
Thanks.
been a
We'll
pleasure.
put the website on the screen.
Okay.
Say thanks to Viv for me when I get her on.
I will. She's a very dear
Nice if
friend.
you get the color code, kind of got blue thing going.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
hey, thanks for tuning in today.
Thank you.
Listening to Nancy Todd. If you're going through a rough place, you need a new job, or maybe you've been out of work for a long time by personal choice. You want to go back into the job force. She'd be a great person to talk to. So thanks so much for tuning in today. This is Directions and Jay West. We'll see you next time. God bless you. Until then, bye-bye.